This debate with Eboni K Williams has really taken more of a turn than I thought it would. I originally wasn't going to make a video about this, but considering Umar decided to speak on this, I figured it was my time to add my 2 cents in because the conversation got warped into something way off. I will be inserting the different clips and dissecting them so you guys can further understand what Eboni said and how the narrative is being spun in order to actually villainize her without understanding her message. If you guys want to skip the clips, you can, but I just wanted to insert them so you guys could really see how this conversation was stupid as fuck.
Okay. I'm looking forward to straightening my crown, Dr. Ayana. Let me ask you this. Let's get to the logistics, though. Let's get to the logistics. We know that black women are earning college degrees faster than anybody else. Many of us are doing like we're doing, Ayana. We're getting those terminal degrees, those JDs, MD, PhDs. We also are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs, along with Latina women in America. Pew Research said that women are now out-earning men yes. in 22 of the largest cities in America, including where I live, New York, D.C., L.A., you name it. When we talk, and I know that you've said that you cannot teach a man or tell a man how to be a man, so I will not ask you to indict men in this question. But I do want you to speak, Ayanla, to how women need to, position ourselves so that we can be in our divinity, so we can have our crowns right, how we can create and not build, when some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all, they are not positioned to protect nor provide because of some of the statistics we just talked about. They're not earning the incomes. They're not having the resources, and some of them are not even showing up in the leadership.
Would you date a bus driver? Would you date
if he owns the bus? If he owns it. If he owns the bus.
That's a problem. That's a problem. Okay. Because the standards and requisites, and I'm not talking about him laying on his sofa playing video games all day. I'm not talking about that. But the standards and the criteria that we use to measure men is off for who we are as women and who they are in the society. I would date a bus driver if he loved driving the bus, if he was a man of integrity, if he was good to his mama, if he treated me well, I would date a bus driver. But we think that it's another human being's responsibility to give us what we need instead of us building together. I could build with a bus driver. I'd have my little stash over on the side in my prenup, but I could build with a bus driver. So I think some of the criteria that we look for in the reality of today keeps us unhappy, keeps us angry, keeps us imbalanced. And then when the men show up, we want to beat them up because they're not living up to our standards and criteria. And it's not working, beloved. It's just not working. So it's not that it's bad or wrong. It's obsolete. It's obsolete. We have to come up with a new way of being.
I think that's a factual analysis. For whatever we want, expect, we're told we were going to get, we got to look at the numbers and what's available on the marketplace. So you're certainly not wrong in the analysis. And you know, let's.
So I'm going to start off with the first clip. The interview was about modern women and femininity. So Ilana is messy because she threw a spark knowing Eboni wasn't going to let it out. What Ilana basically did was tell Eboni that her standards were too high for the state of men out. That's really it. That's basically what she said. Her saying she'll date a bus driver and build with him isn't Eboni's reality. And considering Ilana is like 3-time divorced, it shouldn't be her reality either. And the fact of the matter is, it isn't a lot of women's reality either if they make a substantial amount of money. It's basically what Kevin Samuels' I'm a PhD bit was about. He would ask what do you bring to the table and a woman would include a degree on the list and Kevin would let them know nobody gives a fuck about their degree, more so their appearance is it up to par with what a high value man wants. And for a woman, it's more likely than the opposite. It's not always about the men's appearance, but their financial stability. Because women of color are becoming more educated and beginning to outnumber men in finances. The question Eboni asked was how should women position themselves in the dating scene, and Ilana told her to lower her standards and focus more on building together instead of finding someone who's already built. But in Eboni's case, this isn't what she wants to do considering she's built for herself already. She's a television host, a commentator, reality TV star, and a lawyer. She is already a multi-millionaire. She built so much for herself already, so why is her saying she'll date the owner of the bus controversial? Iyanla asked her a basic question that people somehow transformed into her speaking low of blue-collar workers or bus drivers. If you asked Kim K if she'll date a fisherman and she said no, I don't think anyone would bat an eye at her answer, because we see Kim as someone who screams wealth and has high standards for whom she dates within her social circle because she's a beautiful multimillionaire. And so is Eboni. Eboni is a beautiful black multimillionaire with a long resume to match, Who crosses the check boxes for what men supposedly say that they want in a woman? She is pretty, fits the preference beauty standard, she's intelligent, she has her own, she doesn't have any kids, so why wouldn't she date someone who's more on her social circle or tax bracket? And why did the hit dogs holler? Which is a real question that we genuinely have to speak about because, for one, she didn't mention race. She said men of all races across the color and age spectrum.
Some of us, quite frankly, feel that the men that are available to us, and I'm talking about across the color spectrum, across the age spectrum, trust me, I've done them all,
She didn't single any race out, but like I said, the hit dogs hollered and it drew a lot of backlash and think pieces, which caused Eboni to speak up with this response.
The gap between black women who do show up in a so-called masculine posture, those of us that are providing and building and protecting due to circumstances that we might feel make us feel that if we don't do it for ourselves, we will have to go without the resources and protections we need to feel safe in this world. But Dr. Ayanla went in a different direction. She asked me a personal question. And y'all know I have been extremely transparent about the fact that my life choices and my chosen lifestyle are far outside of the norm. So when I said that I would date the bus owner, a lot of y'all heard something different. Some of you heard the following. Bus drivers are whack. Bus drivers are broke. Oh, and I'm too good for a bus driver. The only thing is, y'all made that part up. See, I said what I said. But then some of y'all started talking about salaries and hourly wages, pensions and benefits. And that's wild because I was never talking about money at all. I was talking about black ownership, but some of y'all made it about money. I'm talking about ownership, black enterprise and entrepreneurship because really I am talking about black liberation. And if you read my book, you'll understand why. So I'm standing 10 toes down on that position, and I don't really care if you're hurt or offended by it. And since some of y'all are already big mad, let me go ahead and make you incensed. So out of the 50,000 plus comments posted on social, I only saw a handful that even considered the possibility of a bus owner being a more aspirational position and recognizing that I am actually speaking and pouring into the ascension of black men when I said what I said. But see, no, some of y'all were too busy naming and shaming me personally and black women in general as undesirable, gold diggers, and much worse. Now, I suspect that some of y'all are the same men that were bringing home C's and D's on your report cards, only to then be coddled by parents that said, well, that's okay, as long as you're doing your best. Well, listen, I love and believe in the excellence of black men. So no, my dear, C's and D's or any other form of mediocrity is not okay. No, I will not create a soft place for you or anybody that I love to fall comfortably into the bigotry of low expectations. So I'm going to say one more time, there's absolutely nothing wrong with driving a bus. My mother Gloria drove one for years. But could it be that black America has been sold a narrative of average, regular, and typical being good enough for us? Well, see, that's called white supremacy. And in this case, it takes the form of conditioning black Americans to happily accept being a permanent American underclass. But see, because I know the truth about black folk in America, no, average is not and will never be good enough for me. And the gag is, I don't think it's good enough for you.
This response is what I believe to be the true trigger of the outrage that she's gotten. But the thing about Eboni is that she's a lawyer, so she naturally has an assertive tone. So the way she speaks did come off more stern, but nothing she said was a lie. Hit dogs will holler. She didn't speak negatively on bus drivers. Like she said, her mother was one. She just said she wouldn't date one, which is understandable for a woman of her caliber. But some people miss the entirety of her message to reflect on a small comment when there's a bigger issue on hand. Instead of actually acknowledging what she said, comments online began to berate her and throw low blows at her. The usual modern women are gonna die alone comments. But Eboni didn't lie. Her message was simply too harsh to hear. I often think to myself why there's so much commentary about women and how they need to do better to attract a quality man, or how they need to change themselves and present themselves a specific way. But I never typically see as much commentary, aside from a 30-second Instagram reel on Bossing Up, about how men could ascend into higher positions. The same energy that's given to women about being women can be put into how men can elevate into higher positions and create a path for black excellence. A lot of people want to talk about the problem, but never want to face the hard truth about how black liberation does start with an excelling above being good enough. And that also starts with our men. She acknowledged white supremacy as the root cause, as we all know it is. But how much can we continue to ignore a problem at face value and instead throw insults at a woman who has taken the initiative to better themselves outside of a black man? And I don't say that out of disrespect, but you're calling her a gold digger, but how can she be a gold digger when she's already a millionaire? When she says she won't coddle black America, meaning she's going to acknowledge that when it comes to the workforce, we do occupy the lower side of it, which isn't her opinion, it's actually facts.
What I watched were you talking about people as a whole,
Right.
and even white supremacy bringing up, calling
Yes.
saying average, like it to me, it felt like almost attack on the working class and the people that were in them comments more than it was the man you're looking for.
So let's address it, Weezy. I'm glad you brought that up because that is the turn that I took. So at this point, who gives a fuck about who Eboni K Williams is dating? Let's throw that over to the side because it's irrelevant.
That's your preference. I agree.
And who gives a fuck, right? So now let's talk about my real work in this world. The work God has called me to do, which is to always sit in a posture of elevating, advancing, and offering options to Black Americans for us to have a first-class existence. So when I talk about a permanent Black underclass, that's something that I talked about in the response video that Weezy citing. A lot of people felt a way about that. What the fuck does she mean, a permanent Black underclass? What I mean is the data. So I sent Charlamagne a bar graph from the U.S. Census yesterday, and it listed about 15 different global identities. So again, you got to zoom out for this. This is not about Black folks and white folks in America. This is global. At the top of that, y'all, this is earnings. Indian Americans earn more than anybody else in America. At the very bottom, Black Americans. It's like they were earning about $100,000 per year per average. Not a few, not half. 100% of their average is 100,000 plus. We were down here at around 28,000, 30,000. Okay, we're white people in the middle. They weren't up here, so that's why I have a personal problem with a lot of the culture saying that we should not have to be excellent. We talked about this, Charlamagne, yesterday on the phone. We should get to be basically as mediocre, as average as white Americans. For me, that's a no. I'm gonna tell you why. I travel the world. Y'all all travel the world. Y'all are global citizens, and we're blessed and privileged to do so. I got news for y'all. White mediocrity is depreciating fast. So I'm not going to hold white mediocrity, white subpar, white averageness as a standard for the generation of Black children we're raising today.
Well, what does America do without the working class?
First of all, it's not about not having a working class. It's saying that why do Black people, I'm so glad you asked this, why do Black people disproportionately occupy it? Now, America found out, if we didn't know before, how essential our bus drivers, our MTA drivers, our home health nurses, our custodians, our grocery store workers were during fast food, all of it, during COVID. And God knows we were ringing those pots and shouting them out, and God bless our essential workers. Nobody loves them more than your girl here. But you know what I don't love is that Black folks died at a 2-to-1 rate of during COVID, that Black folks were on ventilators more often during COVID. And part of the reason why that was the case, y'all, is because we over-index in the blue-collar working sector, in the essential jobs, and many of us don't have the option that we all had, which was to do our jobs virtually. So we are on the front lines in a way that disproportionately makes us vulnerable. We're dying because of it. That is my issue, not to disrespect these people.
I feel like you're changing the goalposts, right? What people were upset about was what you said, and everything that you said could absolutely positively be true. People were upset that they felt like that you were putting down the average person, quote unquote average job, and the person that was working the average job, that their what they do is not as good as what you do.
That's a projection, Envy. That's a projection.
Because I'll let you speak. Let me talk.
Yeah.
So when you start talking about all this, and I read the comments just like you did because I wanted to prepare myself when you came up here to understand what people were mad about, and understand what people were upset about. So when you're talking about all this brother this, and the Black man this, and the white supremacy this, and this, that, and the other, that's all to the side of how you felt about that quote unquote average job, right? And I'll be honest with you, right? One of the comments that I said, and maybe I'm not sure, right? The guy was like, you talk about all this about lifting a brother up and lifting this up and white supremacy and what you do for our people. And then the first thing the brother said was, but your fiance was white. And I'm sitting there like, how do you talk about how much you're uplifting and how much you're going for Black people, but that's not necessarily what you're even looking for?
Well, first of all,
and to add fuel to the video I clipped before this one, that's basically what she was saying, to say it's not out of disrespect but of truth. But Envy with his beige rage doesn't have the range to have this conversation. Brought up Ebony's ex-fiance who was Caucasian, but I'm not sure why Ebony isn't allowed to speak on Black issues with a white spouse. There's a plethora of Black men in the industry who create for the Black audience with white or other wives. Kanye West, whose father was a Black Panther and goes on rants regarding the Black community, didn't even bother marrying a Black woman, but instead marrying a woman who culture appropriates for attention. He wore a White Lives Matter t-shirt to troll, or when he was at Trump's office giggling and shit. I don't hear people bring up the fact that he has a non-Black ex-wife when he talks about the Black community.
I'm talking for them. I'm not a bus driver. I'm speaking for the average person out there because I feel for them, because the bus drivers and the average person are what keeps these lights on here on the Breakfast Club. Right. They keep me booking shows.
Nobody is saying, first of all, this is not about you booking shows.
I'm just telling you how I feel. So when you shit on the people that
first of all,
me,
Envy, you're dead ass wrong for framing it as me shitting on them.
You don't think I'm shitting on them?
I know it. First of all, I know it wasn't. I think what you're saying right now is irresponsible. I think what you're saying is irresponsible.
Envy,
I think what you are framing right now in this moment is highly irresponsible. Because if you listen, I'm going to tell you. Because if you were to listen to all of the full Yana interview, the full sidebar, the full episode of Holding Court, nowhere in any of that commentary did I say a cross or negative word about the working class of Black America, of America broadly, or Black men. I'm going to get to the why was my fiance. Envy, let me finish this statement.
You know what
I'm going
feel?
to get to.
Just because you didn't mean to hurt somebody, just because you didn't mean to affect somebody doesn't mean you didn't hurt a community.
I don't
can say
deal
anything
in
about somebody,
feelings.
but I didn't mean it.
I get the feelings aspect of it, but DJ Envy was projecting. A hit dog will holler. Ebony's word choice weren't the best, but she didn't statistically lie. The truth is a hard pill to swallow, but to re-navigate this conversation, it's very interesting to see Envy speak about how feelings were hurt But when Kevin Samuels regularly spoke about black women and their beauty or how they weren't good enough, even to the women that were willing to listen and understand, they weren't met with empathy by the men that watched. They were met with, that's a hard pill to swallow. There was no conversations about Kevin needing to soften his tone to not hurt the women he talked to. The Breakfast Club didn't have a conversation or were outraged when a black man said that black women were at the bottom of the totem pole when it came to beauty.
You can there and the same, beauty is subjective. That's another fallacy. Beauty is not subjective. That's why we have the golden ratio, the Fibonacci equation. You can look at facial symmetry and see that beautiful people, you can map their facial structure, and it goes to a mathematical calculation.
Oh yeah.
Beauty is universal. And the thing is, we're talking about black women, they are on the opposite end of the spectrum on all ranks.
Nobody cared. Y'all didn't care. But when Kevin's main points were a woman's beauty and youth were valuable. So when Eboni speaks about true facts that is statistically proven and shines a light on that, she is villainized and has to re-explain what she said and why it matters. But outrage only truly takes form when it's affecting the ego of a black man and their hurt.
If you are an interracial dater, if you are a bunny hopper, then what you are telling me is your whole diatribe, your whole rant against black men driving a bus was a justification so you can date a white man. I hope that ain't the case. I hope that ain't. You spoke well today, my sister. You still didn't deal with collective work and responsibility, though. I still heard a lot of Eurocentric individualism. And I don't know where you've been getting your reports from, sweetheart, but we got 2 million Africans with college degrees unemployed. We got 2 million Africans with college degrees unemployed because you was doing a whole lot of pushing college. You was doing a whole lot of pushing college today, like it's some form of upward mobility. I'm sorry, Sister Eboni K Williams. College is not an opportunity for 21st century Africans.
Now, I'm only going to play a portion of this clip, but this is really the pot calling the kettle black. This is the purest form of jokes on jokes. This is a hit dog hollering at the expense of a black woman to defend men. He didn't watch the interview, nor did he care to do the research. I respect Dr. Umar, but at this moment, it's crazy that a man who's trying to build a school of his own for black excellence will let out of his Joel sack that college graduates are unemployed and demeaned her for pushing college. For someone who's trying to build a school, why would you say that? Why would you say that? You've been collecting money and speaking this idea for the school so black boys and black little girls can learn to be exceptional, in which Eboni is also speaking about. She is speaking about excelling further into jobs and careers in the black community, and I want people to stop reading above the surface but also in between the lines. It's not about just going to college, it's about having the mindset for more. You have to want more. It's not just about owning your own, because facts are that some of the highest levels of career that most will ever achieve are under the white man, but at least you will die knowing you ascended into a higher position and didn't remain stagnant and struggling. Because we know college isn't always the end-all be-all, but it can be a stepping stone for higher pay. We the community focused on something so stupid, and people online demeaned her for having a preference and telling people to want more out of life in this one life that we have. It wasn't out of disrespect, but a hit dog will holler. But anyways guys, thank you for tuning in, and make sure you let me know what you think down below. Make sure you like and subscribe. Toodles.